Welcome back. There's that smile that I love, grown to know and love. Uh, Welcome back for another session of that's going to come up on the screen really pretty. Anytime is good with myself, Pastor Jeff, and I am joined for this segment, this episode, with my good friend, the Right Reverend William T. Smith. I actually don't know if his middle name starts with a T. What does it start with?
There are only 25 other letters to guess at.
All right, Z.
Nope.
Q.
H.
Is it Henry?
Harold.
It's got to be named after somebody.
My grandpa.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Well, I'm sure you make him proud. So I'm here with Will Smith. He is.
I don't have a record, so.
They expunge everything before 18, though, right? That's how the legal system works in America.
What they told me.
So we really test the strength of the background checks of the ELCA. So we are. Pastor Will serves in the Fort Wayne area. I don't know if it's officially Fort Wayne, but he serves in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Grew up in Indiana. Is a Hoosier through and through. I think the only time he's lived out of state was when he was in seminary, would be my guess. Yeah. But just like all of these sessions, which everyone just knows and loves by now, we're going to have 6 questions. This portion, the question portion, which is really the only portion, because as I told you before we hit record, there is no talent portion of this show. The 6 questions are referred to as ex cathedra. It's a little graphic will pop up, ex cathedra, meaning, as you probably know, Will, but for anybody who's watching for the first time, that's the Latin that's used for when the Pope is pronouncing something with infallibility. He's doing it from ex cathedra, from his throne. And so you are sitting on ex cathedra, aka the hot seat. So 6 questions. We're going to start off with a softball. Okay. Question number 1. What was it like, now that you're a pastor now, what was it like growing up with having a pastor as a parent? Because that's kind of a different dynamic than most pastors have.
Well, it's very different. Very, very different. When I was, I was in 5th grade when my mom went to internship, and that's when things really started to change, because she was actually then called to the congregation where she did her internship. And so we just kind of stayed on. Before that, I have living memory before, and my parents were very active in the church before. I served on council, helped with the property management, ran the youth group, helped with Sunday school, VBS, all that stuff. The change was very, very dramatic, because all of a sudden we were front and center with everyone. Everybody knew us. And they didn't know us, as Terry and Alice's kids. We were the pastor's kids.
Right.
And so me and my younger brother, my 2 older brothers, were old enough that they were almost out of the house. So it didn't really affect them too much. But me and my younger brother, it changed things a lot. And it was even more so, I think, because my mother was pastor instead of my father.
Right. Yeah.
And my mom was the first woman to be called to this area.
Wow.
So there was not another woman pastor within, anywhere that she could have any connection. So it was a very new thing, and people really weren't sure what to do with it. Even the ones who were supportive didn't know what to do with it.
Right.
So one of the stories I remember is, when we came into the congregation, people were trying to welcome us in and things like that. The leader of the women's group came to my dad and said, the wife of the pastor has always been in charge of the women's group. And so I don't know how this is going to work, but I guess you can come and be a part of the women's group if you want.
Which was said in she was trying to be nice. It was benevolent.
Yeah,
but it was just so,
and here's this man who's a tire builder, a factory worker and a farmer, and he's getting invited to be in the women's group, but so it was very, very different.
Okay. Those were the best 20 years of his life, though, weren't they? When he was head of the women's group at the church. Yeah. That's interesting. So not just having a pastor, but it was your mom, and this was it rural Indiana?
No, this was the 2nd largest congregation in the Indiana Kentucky Synod.
Oh, okay.
So it was a suburban congregation.
Okay.
In Fort Wayne, which, believe it or not, Indiana does have metropolitan areas.
Yeah, I've
Where-
seen a couple of their buildings. Yeah,
yeah, they're
yeah.
over 3 stories high. You know,
But they try to make them the same height as the silos, right?
yes, yes, yeah, yeah.
So I hope nobody at your congregation watches it. You know, being from Ohio, where we're such a metropolis here.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, yeah, I know how that works. But yeah, I'm just wondering like how those like you said that dynamic of even going back a generation, the marriage dynamics of people looking at like, well, the husband is supposed to be this and the wife is supposed to be that, and that pastor position carries with it at times some authority, and how that that must have been really interesting.
I could tell you stories all day on that.
Yeah, don't.
Yeah.
Question number two. Question
Number
number two.
two.
We're only two into it, so it's only going to go downhill from here. Question number two. And this is a question that I'll probably ask everybody. When you felt called to ministry, was it something where you felt it like within a moment where you had kind of like an epiphany moment of this is what I'm supposed to do? Or was it more of a gradual, or was it kind of like something, an immediate thing happened to you?
The actual coming to the realization was a very immediate thing.
Okay.
I resisted my call
Right.
with every ounce of my being. I told God I would do anything. I would be anything. I would do any kind of work. I just didn't want to be a pastor, anything but a pastor.
And like most things, you failed at that. I'm just gonna put that.
Yeah.
Gonna put that right there.
Yep.
But now was that though, to tie it back, was that because of stuff you saw your mom go through, or was it just you had an internal thing of like, I don't know if I'm supposed to be like my mom, to be in that same kind of position as my mom?
No, it had everything to do with what my mom went through. And
Okay.
and they're, my folks, they did come from a time when there were very clear defined roles that men and women had. There were jobs that men had and there were jobs that women had. And so, the trajectory of their, evolution, socially and relationally, I can't comprehend the kind of changes that they went through and were willing to make,
Right.
But in that process, my younger brother and I were exposed to more of the church than probably was helpful for us. And I think that a lot of that was just because they were so active in the church before, and we were just there with them all the time,
Right.
that they just kept doing that. We were just there with them all the time. And we were there with them all the time. And so we saw the underbelly of the church.
Yeah.
In the congregation where they were at, there was a lot of dysfunction that was perpetuated by people's ability to pay for things, and it got really nasty.
So you saw that and you were like, yeah, not for me.
No,
not so much.
no,
I want to have a happy life.
Oh, I'm more than happy to serve you, Lord. I want to do good by you. I want to help build the kingdom of God. I just don't want to do it in the church.
So going with, because this draws also on with your experience with your mom's ministry, but then also with your ministry, because I believe you're in your second call. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on length of pastoral calls? There's debate or there's discussion about that. As long as you can be somewhere, you can, be there as long as you can. Some other people, say actually it should be this fewer years. There's trends if you look at them. What are your thoughts about length of pastoral calls?
Yes.
They should be all those things. There's no one set answer. There's no one set answer.
Yeah. I think that any kind of like standard answer is in and of itself wrong.
Okay.
I think that it depends on the individual. I think it depends on the congregation. I think it depends a lot on the environment. And then it depends a lot on the connection between the congregation and the pastor. You can have a great congregation and an amazing pastor and not have a good chemistry, a lining up of needs and abilities both
Right.
ways, because
right.
You have needs and abilities. It's not just the pastor who has the abilities it's bringing to bear. I think that you can have a call that's too short.
Okay.
Right. I think that there is something to be said for being in a place long enough to know people's stories. I think that knowing people's stories is an essential part of good ministry, and not just the stories that they tell you when they first meet you. And I think that it's important to get to know the story of the congregation and the community too. You need to know what rivalries there are between the high schools, and you need to know, which businesses or, industries have come and gone. You need to, you need to know those things. At the same time, I think that you can stay too long. I think that our own egos, the limitations of some people's understanding of what it means to be church, can lend to the getting to a place where the pastor is the church.
Right.
And so if the pastor leaves, then the church is going to die. But then also, I think a pastor can stay so long, you lose something, whether it's through dealing with attrition or trauma or just duration, right? That sometimes it's important to move out of that into something else, and to make that moving, thought-filled process. Now, there can be short ministries that are good, and there can be, single calls that last, 40 years that can be good too.
You gave the right answer, as much as it upsets me to say that.
I think it's important too, especially in the time in which we live, or doing ministry, is to understand that the question of what does it mean to be church is an extremely important question to be asking. Because it's now a required question, so when you talk about different kinds of churches and their patterns, their willingness to be attentive to the world around them and what's going on inside their doors, and not to look at it as a growing or shrinking, a living or dying, but just as an identity thing. It's like, why are we here? And that, it's a really easy question to which you can give some really, trite answers that are right. They're right. But it's actually a really hard question to answer.
Unbelievably. And I'm not going to ask you it because I didn't think of it. And this is my show and not yours.
Yeah, I would ask that question, but not of you, because I don't really want to know what you think.
Take a sip. I spit in your mug when you weren't looking. All right, number 4, question 4. I've never had another pastor ask me this, and I've never yet, I've known Will for over 20 years, and I've never asked him this question. Do you have? 2001. It's 2022. It's 21 years.
How did you get that old?
I know. Oh my gosh, you were as young and spry as the day I met you.
Okay, go on. Sorry.
Yeah, all right. No.
Now that I feel old.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If you weren't feeling old before, then you have good oxygen circulation in that office of yours. All right. So the question is, do you have a favorite Bible verse or Bible story?
I found myself thinking about this during a children's sermon not too long ago. You know how your mind can start running when you're preaching sometimes?
Always.
I found myself saying, this is one of my favorite stories. And I realized that I say that a lot.
Me too. This is a great story. You got to listen to this wisdom right here.
But from that standpoint, from a kid's standpoint, I really like those Old Testament stories, and I like, the miracle stories of Jesus, especially, as a kid, I liked when he actually talked to kids. He took them up in his arms and blessed them. As a kid, I could, that I always picked up on that. It was like, Jesus, he spent time with them. As I've gotten older, I've really wrestled with God, honestly.
Okay.
And largely because of my experience with the church. I mean, my faith walk has been anything but straight. There was a moment where I really honestly did not believe in God. I just could not. And there have been other times when I've been so angry at God that I couldn't even talk to God. But when I turn to scripture, I like those passages where, like in Ephesians, in chapter 2, where it's we are saved by grace, period. Like the whole Bible, we're saved by grace. Right. And then he very quickly goes on to flush it out in all kinds of ways, but it's right there. It's right there in the Bible. You want to quote one verse out of the whole Bible, take it out of its context, and quote that and have it be in context. We're saved by grace. That's it. So that I know then that it's not me that's doing it, but the sin that lives within me, especially, my teenage years and on into my early adulthood or young adult years. I became very aware of that really spoke to me. And it's something that I've pulled out on a regular basis with people. It's like, you know what, this isn't new.
Right.
Paul like names this, and there's another passage part in there where Paul, he talks about how, people who aren't Christians can still be believers, and he talks about how, it is written on their hearts, so that in their actions and in their deeds, you can see that, God is there, and that's where I'll tell people sometimes, I'll take an honest atheist over a mindless Christian any day of the week. Somebody who just says, I believe, just so that they can then think that they're getting into heaven and that's how it works. That kind of Christian, that they really bother me. They make my job so much harder.
Yeah, no, I do. I don't have those people in my congregation, or at least
I don't either.
Or at least that would watch this. None of them.
Yeah, no.
So
I don't either. But I've heard of them.
Question 5. You're almost there. So it's going to get a little heavy before it gets light. Okay, so 6 is going to be light.
Bring it.
One thing that you wish you would have known before taking your ordination vows.
Boldly follow your gut. But that doesn't mean that you're never going to be wrong. And doing it, sometimes you're really going to mess it up because your gut can get it wrong. But a lot of times your gut is going to call things that are very sensitive and can be very explosive or problematic, and so to push it is going to make things hard, but it's right. And that is worth getting crucified, because, you're going to get crucified anyway. And that's something I knew going in. But
that's what you were trying to avoid.
Yeah.
And
that's been reinforced. You're going to get crucified anyway. It might as well be for the right thing.
I like that. I didn't honestly think you were going to give a good answer to any of these, let alone that one. But you're being coached.
You caught me at the right time. I've had just enough to drink, and not too much to drink.
You're right.
I'm in the pocket. Yep. You think this is coffee?
Number 6. I've been waiting forever to ask this question. Okay, so I want you to clear your mind, take a deep breath, and just embrace the question and give it good thought. Okay, because it's serious. Question number 6. I'm going to read it directly as I have it here. Okay. Do you think God loves redheads as much as people with normal hair colors? No.
Absolutely not. How could he possibly?
That's your personal experience.
You better believe it.
I'm
sitting here having this conversation with you. I mean,
how low have you fallen? Pretty low. So, like, when you're really a redhead like you, because I mean, like, your hair is orange, if we're being honest. It's not even red. That's a misnomer.
And from when I was little, that used to make me very angry.
Did it really?
Because, no, because my hair is not red; it's orange,
like a cat, like Garfield. That is, oh my gosh. Are there any preconceived notions of people that are there really? That extend into ministry too, or?
But more so when I was a kid. I mean, redheads are expected to have short tempers. We're supposed to be troublemakers. And it really stinks too, because if there is a group of kids who are horsing around and an adult looks over and wants to, stop it, the first and only person that they see is the redhead. Now, I hated that when I was a kid, because there could be 12 boys, roughhousing, and I was the one that ended up, in trouble.
Right. And they would know they made you mad because you're turning red, your skin, right away. I mean, the sun is your enemy. You have an uphill battle. You nailed it. You put it right there in the line. So,
and the chicks dig it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the chicks, it's like having a British accent with your hair. Yeah. So, all right. Well, I want to say thank you to you for begrudgingly agreeing to do this, giving me carte blanche permission to edit the words you said into any order I would like to make it say or whatever I deem fit. But yeah, so for your ministry out in Indiana, for your family, just your time working together and knowing each other, I want to say thank you. And dear God, if we're still alive in another 21 years, that'll be that'll be insane. But it could happen. It could happen.
Likely, actually.
Yeah, with advances in medicines, dear Lord. So thank you again. Hope you have a
You're
great
welcome
night.
again.
And
Thank
I
you for
will,
the opportunity.
yeah,
I
and
am
I will,
humbled.
oof. All right, don't push it. Don't push it now. You're just, yeah, don't push it.